Welcome to the How Did Show, where interesting people answer the questions, how did I get here? And how in the hell did I get here? With your host, Donovan Corneets.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another great episode of the How Did Show. And today we have a very special guest. I'm so happy to have him here. And we're going to talk about some really cool stuff. Anyway, I'll give a little introduction so you know exactly who I'm talking about, okay? So this gentleman is a television host and multi-hyphenate creative in the food, comedy, and digital space. Most recently, he hosted Food Network's Spring Baking Championship. Awesome. He's also known for his breakout series, Cheap Eats, which ran for 5 seasons on Cooking Channel, which I actually did some promos for. Internationally, he's on Food Network and is streaming on Discovery Plus. So doing really big things, a regular on shows like The Best Thing I Ever Ate, a judge on Chopped and Chopped Jr., on Food Network and Discovery Plus. Everyone, please give it up for my buddy, Ali Khan in the house. Welcome, sir.
What's happening, Don?
What's going on, man? Thank you so much for joining me. It's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much for joining me on the How Did Show. We're going to go ahead and get right into it, man. Like I said, we met virtually, right? Like everything these days.
Social, all Twitter.
all Twitter, because of me being the promo voice for season 4, I think we said, of your show, Cheap Eats, which is awesome. Everybody go stream past episodes. But anyway, and since then we've kept in touch. I've followed you, seeing you, move on bigger, better things and stuff, and hosting and guest starring, like I just talked about, everywhere. So it's really an honor to have you here. But in light of all that, I want to ask you, since this is the How Did Show, Ali Khan, when you ask yourself, how did I get here in your career, what is that answer?
An email that popped through in 2014 in all caps.
There you go.
Question mark. In 2014, I was, and I feel like a lot of us are in that day and age where emails are like the make or break of life, isn't it? You know what I mean?
It
the
can
big
be,
news
for sure.
comes on email.
Especially if it's all caps, man.
Oh, it was all caps. It was all caps. Obviously, a bit of an immediacy. The person who sent me that email was a casting producer who I had met 2 years prior, who had casted me in a pilot for a food show that was a version of Man vs. Food. And every 6 months, I'd hear from her saying, hey, what are you up to? Do you have any ideas? Let's try and get you a food show. And I say that kind of casually, but that was 2014. And for the 10 years leading up to that, I had been trying to be on food TV. I caught the acting bug when I was a kid. I studied a lot of theater all the way up through college. And I kind of accidentally did a job where I helped write a restaurant guidebook for Los Angeles. I never thought of myself as a food writer or food journalist. A friend of mine who worked for a magazine out of New York had to write this little book. This is 2003, so no smartphones or Yelp, and was like, listen, I got to write this restaurant nightlife guidebook. I know you. He knew me since I was 12, and I was always into food. He's like, I think you'd be a great person to work on this project. And when the book came out, I had gone to USC, and my friends who had gone to film school were like, you should do something with food TV. I mean, this is now 2004, 2005, and Food Network was really certainly a household name at that point. It was just growing and growing and growing. So I hatched an idea. I was like, let me figure out some food TV. And the person who came up with that idea, he was a screenwriter, and his cousin was also someone who was like-minded into the culinary arts. And it would turn out that man would be Jeff Mora, who won Food Network Star in 2011. So we came up with this food show idea, and we just hustled and chased meetings and tried to figure it out. And, 10 years of coming up with nothing means there's a lot of just questioning, like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
And so
Is
when
this really something I want to continue to pursue here?
is it ever going to happen?
Yeah.
Is it ever going to happen? And so when you asked me how did I get here, when I saw that email, that was when all that chasing, all that hustling and doing the crappy jobs and kind of looking in the mirror and explaining to people like, what am I doing? Actually turned into something tangible. It turned into the pilot of Cheap Eats. But specifically, I think of that email and I think about what that specific email led to, which was we shot a thing called a sizzle, which is like a presentation of a show. So not a pilot, but like it was a 10-minute video. They flew me out to Annapolis, Maryland to shoot this thing. And, you know, when I had been coming up with other ideas and projects and stuff, and I had done like a little day segment episode with Bobby Flay, I had shot some stuff with Jeff Morrow that we were
That's
kind
pretty
of
big, man. Bobby Flay.
I mean,
you know,
deal. There are, in 2008, I mean, 10 years I had to come up with something, Donovan.
Yeah. No, I'm impressed.
Yeah, I mean, he was doing a show called Grill It with Bobby Flay, and
Right.
basically you're like, hey, if you're a serious griller, come on out. That was the concept of the show Jeff and I had. We were like these backyard weekend warrior guys, and like to just grill and get silly with food or whatever. So I had done some stuff, but when I shot the sizzle, I went into the kitchen of a restaurant, like a real restaurant, a professional restaurant. And keep in mind, like I was kind of essentially an amateur, avid, novice cook. Like I could get down and talk the talk, but it wasn't my job. So walking into this like professional kitchen, and I was scared, man. I was like, can I really do this? Can I just walk in and be the guy? Because, other times I was either like I was basically like kind of a co-host or whatever. And this time that was just me. And basically, I think like Cheap Eats is like, you're the guy. You're the actual guy. When we shot the pilot and we were talking to people at the restaurants, it was weird because people would be like, there was a producer and they go, so are you the host? And they're like, no, it's this guy. And I'm like, oh, no, it's me. I'm the guy.
Oh, that's right. That is me.
Yeah, that was like the big thing was like, oh my God, I actually have to do this. Like you want something so bad, like you have this vision of what your dream is. And then you go, well, now you're going to do it. So now what's next? And I think that was the big, how did I get here? And I always think about how I for years, I would look back at that email to go, wow, this was a thing that finally took me to that next level.
Made it real.
And it was that email, and I look at that email, that was like the excitement. And then the other half of it was when I actually went into this restaurant and I'm just like, okay, I actually have to do it. So it's like, it's kind of a weird thing to say, be careful what you wish for. But when your dream is a dream job, get ready to work.
No, you're going to work for that dream. Absolutely. Yeah, it reminds me of the Joker. When it was like, I'm just a dog chasing a car. I have no idea what I do if I actually caught it, that line. But that's incredible. But I think that shows that, I mean, obviously you went into that kitchen and you handled business, man.
Yeah. Look, it takes a village. You know what I mean? It definitely takes a village. And what was interesting was, there was that part of it. That was the sizzle. But I also remember well in doing the pilot, and it was day 2 of shooting, and I just hit my stride, and I hit my stride. I was like, I know what I'm doing now. And I even remember some of the network notes. They were like, ooh, he feels a little flat in this one. And it's like, that's going to happen. You know what I mean? Like you kind of get there and you go, okay, I got this. But the truth is like, it takes, you have to be fortunate enough not only to get the gig, but to like have the gig keep going.
For sure. So and you got to learn as you're going, man. You're like in uncharted territory here. Like you said, man, this had been a dream for so long, and then you're in it. And you're like, okay, now I actually have to do this. I don't know what I'm doing here, but I can't let them know. I don't know. What I'm doing, right?
Kind of sums up a big chunk of it. And I think what happened with Cheap Eats was we got into a groove.
Oh yeah, for sure.
The same crew and the same way to do it. And that's when I could really get loose and silly and get wild. Like
and then
then they
have the persona that people are looking for and
Oh, I mean,
entertain.
it peaked. Like to go from I'll tell you what's interesting about this. How did I get here? Let me tell you when I got there. I got there, and then
Okay.
I got to
There you
like
go.
where I was in my zone, really in
Right.
my zone. To think about being in this seafood restaurant in Annapolis, Maryland in 2014, to being in Scottsdale, Arizona, at this kind of silly. Sometimes you pick these restaurants and you pick them because they're visually interesting. They're not
Right.
always like, well, I mean, you make enough of these shows and you're like, there's hits and then there's kind of like,
Yeah.
there's just start, and that not everyone's a home run. We were
Right.
at this ice cream shop, and there was like nothing to talk about. In general with food TV, you're like, oh, my grandfather made gelato in Italy, and then I learned. And by the way, I went to culinary school, and
Right.
oh yeah, my daughter's taking it over. It's like that's a gem of a story. This place was just a freaking ice cream franchise joint. They made nothing. Everything was brought in. They were like, don't
It's
talk about
cold and
this.
it's with milk.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, there was not a lot to talk about. And then they were like, "It's time for the sprinkles," or they said confetti, and I'm like, "Did you say confetti? Confetti?" And I did a thing where I imagined there was confetti everywhere. And
Yeah.
at this point, my director knew exactly who I was, and she was just like, "No, he's just gonna go off and do this
Yeah.
for a while."
Yeah.
And then I remember at the end of the day, she's like, "Great day," and I'm like, "Yeah, right. You like that confetti?" And she goes, "Uh-huh. Yeah." You're like, "This was you. Look at me in my imaginary world." So to go from where I could just basically feel confident enough to say almost anything I wanted without
Yeah.
being rude or offensive, that was quite the journey. You know what I
No,
mean?
that's
Like,
awesome. That's when you're like you said, you hit your stride and you're confident in who you are, and you're like, you know what, world, this is me. I'm going to tell you about this cheap beats, but I'm going to be kind of silly and goofy about it. But that's what's going to endear you to me, and that's what's going to make people tune in, because you can
yeah.
take something where it's like, really, ice cream shop, oh, like confetti, like
Yes.
now
Yes.
it's fun, and now it has personality, and that's thanks to what you brought to it. And I think that's so cool, because you see that across the board in entertainment and media, and being in the creative realm, right? While there are tons of people who are talented, tons of people who can be spontaneous and fun on camera, none of them could do exactly what you do. And when you are confident in what you bring, then you don't have to worry about what anybody else is doing, because I guarantee you the vast majority of anybody else they put in that situation would not have taken that and made it something entertaining by
You
going
know,
in on the confetti.
a while ago, the first time I did Chopped, my same director was like, when you do it, just you be you, do you. In fact, that was kind of their mantra when they would be like, get relaxed, own the moment. You know what I
Right.
mean? And it even happened to me last year when I was shooting Spring Baking, and I hadn't shot in a while. You know what I
Right.
mean? It had been a stretch. And I remember I was sitting in my chair and the producer's in my ear, and she goes, "You know what? Sit up, sit up, sit up." We had these chairs that were for the set, and because of COVID, we were kind of separate from each
Right.
other. Normally, I'd be standing and right next to the judges. I remember she's like, "Sit up," and she goes, "You're Ali Khan. Be Ali Khan." And I'm like, "You're right." I'm like, "Bring it. Be on. Do
Yeah.
your thing." And it's something that you kind of go, listen, this is why you're here. And you have
Exactly.
to find it, and you
And you
want to
own
be
it.
authentic and own it. And sometimes you got to get prodded, and sometimes you just got to pretend like confetti is going to come out of nowhere.
You know what? We're going to make that the teachable moment, right? Just pretend confetti is going to fall out of the air.
Pretend confetti
You're
everywhere.
feeling down, you're feeling worried, out of sorts. Confetti.
Yeah.
Look at that. We just created something special there, Ali.
It's and I for years, like, in any kind of audition, right? Because that's where I really came from, was like, I was auditioning for things, some, few and far between, like, a TV or a movie part. A
Right.
lot of it was commercials. And there are times where they're like, okay, you're funny, right? So improv, be something funny. And you're like, it just doesn't come that way.
Yeah, that's
There
not how this
has
works.
to be,
Yeah.
stuff that really creates like a bit of an impulse or whatever, and it's you really have to like get in that zone where you're like the man. And it's weird. It's like you don't I feel like one of the things a good attribute for me is like I'm fun to work with, I'm easygoing and stuff like that.
Right.
And one of the things I've learned too is you also got to be the man. Like one of the things I've been learning lately has been like we were shooting the spring baking and we finally settled on these red vans. Like so this is a big thing for me, right? Big thing is like
tell me about the red vans.
Yeah, the red vans. The red vans. I remember this. The costume person was like, "That's your look. Those are your shoes." It's taken me a number of shows to kind of go, now I have my official shoes. Now, I didn't always have shoes. Like way back when we started Cheap Eats, we were doing season 1. Apparently, one of the production executives was like, we got to get him some shoes. I'm cursed. I have flat feet.
He showed up with no shoes on. We got to get this guy some shoes.
I wish I would have been better off. Like I wear like New Balance shoes. I'm like an old man. I have a lot of like old man stuff that I have to deal with. I'm middle-aged. My new bio on Instagram is I'm a middle-aged millennial. But I finally figured out shoes, and shoes are big. Shoes are big. Like when you're a host, you're a talent.
Yeah, it's part of the
package.
package.
Have that looked at. I mean, Guy Fieri is probably the ultimate example of like find something and make it stick a bit, you know? And so for me, it's, yeah, I got my red Vans, you know, those are my,
you know what? That's all part of the image, man. That's really interesting, man. I love to hear how different people got to where they are in so many different realms. Someone that, you know, like you said, that you know, were coming in this as someone that was an actor who loves food. And now here you are hosting your own show on the network you wanted to be on. I mean, just a testament to like hard work, sticking with it, and being a dreamer. And then when it came time to deliver, own that moment. And then eventually you come into your own with some red Vans.
Yeah, well, eventually you
How many pair of red Vans do you have?
You know, I have 2. One that's like almost mint, and one that's in the box. That I'm like, okay, if I need them to be 100% totally crisp, because the thing is like, you know, I'm not The Weeknd. You're not going to see me dance with my feet. You know what I mean? That's never going to happen. But it's just good to have like that pair of shoes. That I
thought you were going to say like 8 or 9 pair, man. You had them ready. Like these are my Monday Vans.
Now I'm still the Cheap Eats guy. You know?
Yeah, there you go.
For no reason. No, because you know, like I actually my shoe collection has finally gotten a little bit nicer. It's weird. I've got all my Vans are clean, but Vans became a godsend for me for Cheap Eats, and now like I've settled with these solid colors because they just pop more. It's funny because you know, part of what I was doing started with shades, and that was super accidental. So Cheap Eats, I always had these blue glasses. So one of the ways I was able to kind of get Cheap Eats and get the material to get to Food Network was there was a company, it's still around, Tastemade. That's a Food Network. They're a streamer, right?
Okay.
And I used to call them the Digital Food Network because their stuff was produced content on YouTube. They made an app, and I used that app, and I ran around all over like the nooks and crannies and corners of Los Angeles making these videos on this app. And I used to just grab these cheap little shades. I'd buy them for $5 out a street corner. I used to live in downtown LA, and I'd be like, oh, let me just get some shades. Ooh, these are orange, these are blue, these are yellow, like whatever. They're just fun, you know? And they kind of became my thing. So that pop of color, it now applies to the Vans.
Look at that. Look at that. See what I mean? It comes full circle, ladies and gentlemen. Well, cool. Thank you so much.
Face to feet.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing that story. And now we've come to the halfway point where we are going to spin
the wheel of what?
Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
All right, let's bring this bad boy over here. Look at that. Nice and fancy. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
We're going to spin this thing.
Oh, God.
All right, we got first celeb crush. So, who is your first celebrity crush?
My first celebrity crush? It's so weird because I don't even, well, actually, it's going to sound weird. This is going to sound weird.
I can't wait.
A crush, like, I mean, to be blunt, not in a sexual way, but I loved Al Pacino. You know what I mean? Like,
interesting answer. Okay.
In the 90s, man, like I went to the Blockbuster, I rented Carlito's Way, I popped that sucker in the VCR, and it just got me. And then like in college, like studying acting and stuff, like, you know, Al Pacino, like, you know, great, a New York actor, a theater actor, did all these great movies. So, you watch like great films and you're watching Al Pacino and like, I love me. Carlito's Way was my jam.
Did it for you.
Oh yeah.
Carlito's.
Like
okay.
At one point my freshman year, I remember I went to a sunglass hut and I bought these expensive Ray-Bans with my parents' credit card. They were like, what did you just buy? And I'm like, I needed it. Like these gold Ray-Bans because I thought they looked like Carlito's Way glasses.
Yeah.
I used to quote Al Pacino all the time. I watched Heat in the movie theater 7 times. But again, when I look back, it's Carlito's Way.
Isn't Heat like 3.5 hours? Like, it's a long movie.
Yes, and yes. And yes.
Okay, just wanted to make sure we were talking about the same Heat. Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
7 times. That's quite a commitment.
I'm a big Michael Mann fan too. Miami Vice guy, all that. That's my jam. So yeah, it's weird. Like I was like obsessed with Al Pacino. I remember I went to USC right by the Shrine Theater, the Shrine Auditorium.
Right.
And the Oscars were on. And I remember Al Pacino came out to deliver who the best actor was going to be. And I remember all of us were in the apartment watching it. And people were like, Ali, Al Pacino's on. He's down the block from us as we speak. I know. Yeah, man, it's weird. So yeah, it's kind of funny because to be honest, I was like, this Love Crush current one. Dua Lipa, but I took it to a different direction.
Hey, look, you know what? That's all good. I was not expecting that, but that's a very interesting thing because you can have. I would say that's like a crush, like you said, asexual, not really, that kind of crush. We're like, but it's more of like
it's a celeb crush, right? It's like I have a crush on that celebrity. It's kind of funny though because when Righteous Kill came out, it was completely shattered. It was completely shattered, man.
Righteous Kill. Okay, I remember that one. Yeah, I remember that.
I did. Unfortunately, I did too. It's really funny because a friend of mine, I went to high school and did plays with Sterling K. Brown, who is the actor on This Is. I know that's another. Oh, you want another talk about how did I get here? Oh wait, what's the second? How did I get here?
Well, see, we'll get to that. We'll go right into that now. So now that's top of mind.
Okay.
Now that we got their celebrity crush out of the way with Al Pacino. By the way, Al Pacino, if you watch this, like Ali, he loves you, except for Righteous Kill.
Crazy.
So here's the second half is your question of how in the hell did I end up here, or how did I get here? So some kind of story where you may have been amazed at where you ended up, or something that was maybe out of your comfort zone. Could be wacky, could be zany, could be heartwarming and touching.
All right.
So let's hear
it. It's so funny because this whole thing, because I think about it a lot. I think about all these last couple of years. These last couple of years have essentially completely defined my professional life. And as you navigate the waters, I realize that it's really the last couple of years that have been like, yep, this is what I'm working with. It's not like, I was doing a show 15 years ago. There was nothing that was happening. Everything happened from 2015 and on. So I will tell you this is one, how did I get here? That it's going to be in the heartwarming side. I'd love to tell you something insano and funny and oh my God, the walrus can drive a car, but I don't have that.
We'll do the walrus story next time.
So I'm in Richmond, Virginia. We got picked up to do season 2 of Cheap Eats. This time we got a 13 episode order, which in the TV world is like, now we're cooking. That's
your
proper, right? We went from a pilot to 6 episodes to 13. It was a long summer. We waited a long time. My father had passed away. He had not been well for really a couple of years. And to be blunt about it, when we got picked up, I was like, damn right, man. It's time. It's
I
time.
Earned this, baby.
Yeah, big time. And, the first leg of our tour, we used to shoot the show where for 13 episodes, I wouldn't be gone for 3 months straight. So we would do a couple of cities at a time, right? So I was finishing up the first leg of our run, and we were in Richmond, Virginia, and it was right when the Emmys were on. And, I'm in this hotel room, and I remember earlier I was on the phone with a friend of mine, my old writing partner, and I was just checking in with him, like, yeah, man, I'm doing this thing. And I remember he was what I remember him saying was like, "Oh my God, you're already exhausted." Because I was. I mean,
Yeah.
I had done some of this stuff, but it had been even an issue. Like they're like, "Oh, he's great," but sometimes his energy drops. And I was trying to like, it's like kind of like being an athlete, realizing you
Oh,
got to
yeah.
all four quarters. Like how do you like keep that energy up? And I'm a
Right.
high energy guy, so I was sitting in this hotel like totally exhausted, but obviously happy at the same time. But just it's a lot, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, you get to your dream job, but it's still a job. So I'm in the room, kind of chilling. TV's on. It's the Emmys. And I kind of touched on this, but just to reiterate, I went to high school with Sterling K. Brown. Kelby, we knew him when he was Kelby. Those
Look
before
at
the
that.
Sterling
Insider
chapter, right?
info.
Yeah, insider info. And I've known him for years. We did a lot of plays and stuff together. He actually helped me prepare monologues for when I actually at one point tried to audition. I auditioned for Yale Drama School and NYU Drama School as well. So, I watched his career firsthand, very intimately for the whole run. And I watched him win his first Emmy for People versus O.J. Simpson. And I watched him do that. And even right now, I get like these goosebumps because when you know somebody from way, way, way back when, and then you see that person in the tux with the gold statuette, and I'm also simultaneously like in Richmond, Virginia, like shooting a show, and there and in the entertainment hustle, because a lot of people who don't make it, you know what I mean, or just don't, things, other choices happen, whatever, right?
Right.
There's a great sense of satisfaction. So a lot of this stuff we talked about have been the email that started it all, or, oh my God, the moment where I'm like, I'm actually going to do this thing. I'm actually going to be a TV host. That was a moment where I was like, and still early for me, and actually him technically, because he obviously had a lot more to do besides People versus O.J. Simpson. But that moment was definitely a moment where I was like, this is real.
Yeah.
These things do.
Look at us out here killing it.
This is us, if you will.
Hey, look at that. I see what you did there.
Yeah.
No, that's a great moment because it's definitely cool. Like you said, when you've seen someone from very early and you've watched their journey and you've experienced it, because the work it took. You know about like the consistency it took. You knew how many failures you have to endure before you get that one success story. And then to see it kind of all culminate for both of you like at the same time. Yeah, that's a huge impactful moment, man. And it really kind of, you kind of sit back and like, damn, look at this. I'm watching my classmate win an Emmy while I'm prepping for season 2 of my own show on the network I dreamed of being on, doing something I dreamed of doing. No, that is huge. That's a great how the hell did I get here story. That's awesome, man.
It's funny. I'm in this dude's apartment in New York in 1998. He's at NYU getting his MFA, and I was like, at the time, I'm telling you, it wasn't always Sterling. It was Kelby.
I gotta go with Sterling is a little bit cooler.
Clearly. What he's doing has been working. But for Sterling, you're right. For Sterling K. Brown, straight up, like we to be blunt about it, like we went to a very, nice private school. But Sterling, single mom, you know what I mean? Didn't like come from a lot of money or whatever.
Right.
He was a brilliant student council president, great athlete. Like he's a package, you know what I mean?
Package, right? Got it all
going
on.
When it came to college, I'm pretty sure he got a ride to Stanford, and he studied economics. He was like, I can't, this is from, a lot of people blood, sweat, and tears got me here. I need to do something right. His junior year, he switched his majors. He went and did a play, and he ended up getting cast and beating out some LA actor for I believe an August Wilson play. And that's when he was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it. And he told me then, he's like, if I'm sitting in an office and I'm watching his roommate, a friend of ours, Michael Hogan, who's another great actor. They lived in New York together. He's like, if I'm in an office and I'm watching Michael do it, win an award, I'll be like, I can't live with myself. So, the other thing too is you certainly roll the dice, and I can sit there and say, I'm glad I didn't get into an MFA acting program, because that was clearly not what I needed to do.
Right.
Do what I do.
Yeah.
But it is interesting. Like, you see all this journey, and really the big thing for me is like, and it's hard because there's always that uncertainty, but to know that you can live with it.
Yeah.
And just see where it could go. You know what I mean? It's nonstop faith. People say like, have faith, like it's a singular moment. But really it's just like, just have it in you, man. You know what I mean?
Do you still have the acting bug, you think?
So it's interesting. I actually did something fascinating during COVID, or in 2020. I had done a little bit of writing. I had a writing partner, and we wrote like a pilot, a comedy pilot. And we had a second project kicking around, and I went ahead and started to develop that as a feature. So I actually recently pitched a feature concept to Comedy Central on my birthday, which was a huge career moment. Yeah, so that was really cool. So I'm starting to look at the fact that, I do come from a world, it's like TV talk, but it's like, I want to work in the scripted world. And much like food TV, I realized that rather than just read for a part, I think it's good for me to kind of create
something. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So that, I think that, I'm very much like honing like what it is that I truly do. And I think comedy is a big part of it. And so I think that's where I think, some of that acting could happen. You know what I mean? But again, I like to think of it really as like, I want to create the work. You know what I mean?
Create your own lane instead of depending on a lane to be created for you. Which is why I started a show. Woo. Well, Ali, thank you so much, man. This has been an awesome conversation. Thank you so much for being on the show, man. Great stories, great insight, great inspiration too, guys. Like, this man did it. He's the man. He's got his red Vans. He's doing his thing with his colored shades, like multiple shows. Like, that's just incredible, man. So congrats to you, man. I wish you all the best. I wish you continued success. So yeah, man, thanks again for being on the show, man. And I just wish you all the best things in life, man.
My pleasure, man. My pleasure.
Well, cool. Hopefully we'll be able to actually like meet in person, share a burger. I could try some of your fresh salsa and stuff, man, at some point.
It's funny. I was just talking about maybe selling some salsa. That's the other thing too. You gotta make that paper,
Yeah. get a return on that investment, man.
Exactly. I know. Start selling my own product. That's what's what. But yeah, man. No, thank you. It's been a real pleasure.
Well, cool, man. I look forward to buying me a jar of salsa soon, man. I'll talk to you later.
There we go.
What's going on, everybody? Thank you so much for tuning in and joining me for the How Did Show. So go ahead, like, subscribe, and comment. And definitely be sure to look out for more new episodes coming very soon. Peace.